Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. I haven't been making videos in the past week and a half or thereabouts, and the reason for this is I've been doing some very deep shadow work and I simply didn't have the energy for it. That's the truth. But there's another reason for it, and it is that during these shadow work sessions, a lot of insights have come up, and they are so interrelated that it was difficult for me to choose a specific topic and stick to it without making a huge jumble out of it. So I hope I don't make a huge jumble out of this one. And the gist of this video was on the topic of duality. The subject-object division in the mind, and how it represents a rather terrible condition to be in, especially when it starts to become more noticeable. I go back to Gurdjieff, and if you haven't watched the Gurdjieff playlist, I would invite you to do so. I do a few videos reviewing In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky, who was a student of G.I. Gurdjieff. And in that book, Gurdjieff is quoted to say that most people believe themselves to be, to have free will and to be in real loving relationships, and that it is impossible to get someone to embark on the spiritual journey if they believe themselves to already be happy, to have agency, and to be free. And that it is not until one starts to analyze one's experience deeper that one realizes that one is in a terrible state of repetition, compulsion to avoid repressed pain, in essence. And the deepest level of such pain is the fundamental division that we feel from our essential selves. We feel cut off, as if we are some agent, some invisible ghost behind our eyes, to whom emotions happen as if they were foreign. Now we feel that the things that happen in our bodies are happening to us, as in we are at the receiving end or at the mercy of random things that our body is doing, as opposed to feel like these affects that come up, these physical sensations and emotions, are an integral part of what we are. And the schism that happens in our mind, that divides subject from object, wreaks havoc in our perception of reality. It completely skews and distorts the read that we get on reality, to the point that you could argue we see everything inside out and upside down. It's a complete misrepresentation. The world, as perceived by the senses and interpreted by the divided mind, is a complete misrepresentation of reality. One in which an individual self, identified with the mind-body, is alone in the world and in constant negotiation and competition with a world that is scarce and dangerous, in essence, right? That's how the most primitive and defensive parts of our minds react, and the separate sense of self tends to be identified with that. When it really comes down to it, we will end up being defensive rather than loving. Right? That's what it comes down to. When all pleasantries have been dispensed with, and things become real, let's call it like that, then that's what comes to the surface. So the mention of this is not so much to try to convince anyone to stop living in duality, or to stop seeing the world in a subject-object kind of way, because that's something that can't be done. The illusion of duality, the illusion of separation, and the disease of individuality that the mind acquires through incorrect perception are necessary steps in our evolution that can't be avoided, and they are not illusions that we can think our way out of. Most yoga or spiritual schools, that at least the ones that I subscribe to intellectually, on an intellectual level, are the ones that advocate for a very lengthy and intense period of minute and constant examination of our experience and our sense of self, so that through that investigation we may come to find out that many of the assumptions that we made about our experience are incorrect. And some of that investigation can trigger rather painful episodes, because as we come to find out that many of our assumptions about the world are incorrect, and some very fundamental assumptions, not just opinion stuff, but really identity level or how reality works level assumptions, to make those less solid that they seem to be, than they seem to be, can be a rather traumatizing or re-traumatizing event, because it feels like the floor is being removed beneath our feet. The dualistic mind tries to erect idols or pillars of certainty in the world of objects, because it has to hold on to something. It identifies with the body because it has to identify with something, but at the same time it knows that the body is very flimsy, so it tries to create these pillars of safety around. Some people create idols of money and material well-being. Other people create idols in family relationships or a spouse or kids. So emotional bonding as a source of certainty. You can do it also if your physique is particularly strong, or if your intellect is particularly bright. So we'll find all these things, the places in which to park our sense of solidity and constancy. But life and spirituality being a kind of accelerated method of confronting ourselves with the reality of life, life will strip those away from us sooner or later, and that's when reality hits. And spirituality, as I just said, is a way to have reality hit faster, in essence. We go into a rather ruthless investigation of what's what, and confront ourselves with what's what, and confront ourselves with the squirming and the wincing of our nervous system at the realization that objective reality, objective dualistic reality, is riddled with polarities in which something that is good today becomes bad tomorrow, or something that is really, really good comes along with the fear of losing it, or that there is no such thing as something that is ultimately and only good in the objective world, but that everything is a mixture of convenience and inconvenience, of pleasure and pain in varying degrees. And we try to then use the thinking mind, which is the creator of that polarity, of good and bad, based on what brings us pleasure or convenience. We try to use that mind to somehow resolve that polarity. This is one of the reasons, by the way, and I might make a separate video about this, is one of the reasons why narcissistic abuse is so popular and so incredibly difficult to deal with. Because narcissists present us with the ultimate polarity, something that is the ultimate pleasure, the ultimate validation to be with, and the ultimate pain. Tortures in the threat of abandonment and whatever is this extreme polarity. In fact, narcissists from that perspective are the very embodiment of life. It is something that looks like a human, but which does not play by the human standards. It plays by the standards of raw reality, completely beautiful and murderous at the same time, all in one package. If you have watched the second part of the movie Dune, Lady Jessica invites young Paul Atreides to drink the water of life. And then she says in the old language, and then you will see the beauty and the horror. Because life is both. And the mind, the thinking mind, is not equipped to reconcile opposites. Synthesis is not what the mind does. Synthesis is of the heart. The mind is linear. It must choose between either or. And when something such as a narcissist or life presents us with both, we ping between the good and the bad endlessly without being able to make up our mind, because they are both in fact there. That's what parents are also so confusing. Parents are human. They must have both polarities of good and bad. And if they are really loving, but at the same time imperfect, it can be a very confusing thing. I don't think parents need to be narcissistic to traumatize us. They simply need to show strong polarities, very loving but also very flawed. Now we have a problem. What does that mean? Does that mean they're good or bad? And the mind will ping back and forth forever trying to make up its mind, if you pardon the pun. And it cannot do it. Mind cannot resolve that polarity because mind is the source of polarity. It's the one that is obsessed with classifying good and bad to begin with. So how is that going to pan out? It won't. We'll stay stuck. And that stickiness is so uncomfortable that we repress most of it, and it comes out in compulsions and addictions and distractions. You see? So polarity is a humongous problem if we try to navigate it the wrong way. And by and by, through the relentless investigation of our own thinking mind and of the way the world works and our experience of the world works, we come to realize that everything in the objective world only ever presents us with a polarity. There is no such thing as the soulmate that will solve it all, that will finally make us feel good. That's the other one, right? So when we are presented with that horrible polarity, we try to find perfection and finality somewhere in the objective world, and it's just nowhere to be found. Can't be found in the objective world. We must go inward and resolve the polarity within. and then the polarity without is also resolved. And the thinking mind is the wrong tool for the resolution of polarity, because, as I said, it is the one that generates the polarity through preference and judgment in the first place. The heart, on the other hand, can resolve polarity because the heart accepts it all. Except feeling the heart is fucking difficult and extremely, extremely unpleasant in the beginning, especially if we are sensitive and if we have taken hits to our innocence and our integrity and our dignity as children. And if we are sensitive on top of that, then pretty much anything that has polarity will be an insult to our integrity, because our integrity and our innocence doesn't have that polarity. So we'll be thinking, what the hell is this? Where did I just land here? This is horrible. But to the thinking mind, polarity does not compute. It stays stuck in it. It stays stuck in its own trap of preference. And therefore, we need to learn how to recolonize our heart. I'm full of quotes today. I was watching The Woman King, that movie that came out, this African narrative. And, it turned out to be not as bad as I thought it would be. I was in my head criticizing the notion of a woman king because it goes against the archetype of a king, which is a masculine archetype. But I watched it, and there's always something good to be learned from everything. And it was a good production, I must say. It was not that bad. And towards the end, she, spoiler alert, she tells someone who's very important to her, I pushed you away because I did not have the courage to love you at the time. It's very important for us to realize, unless our heart is open, and for most of us it's not, it's important to realize that we vacated the heart because at that time we did not have the courage to inhabit the heart. We left in a hurry. It got pounded a couple of times, and we thought, this is not a safe place to inhabit right here. This is this is a pit of pain. And yet that is the very pit of pain that we need to recolonize and re-embody if we are to step out of the horror of dualistic living, in which we are always lacking. And only the heart can synthesize the apparently good and the apparently bad, so that we can imbibe life integrally and live it integrally. And this is very, very difficult to do. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been making these videos for a while and trying to encourage people to... is this too dark? Trying to encourage people to really go into the spiritual endeavor, but beware what you get yourself into, because this is not an easy ride, and it goes all the way down to losing all hope, right? As the Dante Divine Comedy says. But there are tremendous rewards, and one of them is no longer having to live in a world of dualistic polarities in which we are fearful and disconnected, perhaps not overtly so, but fundamentally so, and in which we try to create these idols that will save us, and where we park our love and our trust, only to be tremendously disappointed or betrayed. And it happens inevitably disappointed or betrayed, because these things, that is the nature of objective reality. So I didn't look for the quote before I started this video, but I will do it right now if you bear with me. Yes, here's the quote. It is Jesus in the Gospel of Peter, I believe. Yeah. Peter, Petra, right, stands for the rock. And the quote says, "On this rock I will build my church." So through this investigation, you start to look around you all over the world. You look at your job, at your spouse, at your family, at your finances, and none of them pass the test. They can all shake and eventually will break. So none of them qualify. But when you find the inner attributeless self, and that starts to become more present for you, you realize that is the only safe place on which to build your church or your home, the home for your heart. And it's a very natural conclusion, actually. It is not a far-fetched, or it doesn't require big leaps of induction or faith or belief, God forbid. It is a natural conclusion of having tried to establish your home where love and safety and freedom can be felt, and being disappointed every single, if you pardon my French, fucking time. Okay? It doesn't work. So you must go inward, and that's where eventually you come across that pivot, the fulcrum. You know, give me a fulcrum and I will move the world was not a phrase about mechanical forces. It was about finding the center within that is immovable. So that's the invitation on today's video. It is, if you dare, to make that exploration towards the spiritual. And perhaps a bit of a serious video, but you know, it doesn't have to be happy-go-lucky every time. And that's the mood today, right? I've been doing some very, very intense, very deep work, and that's what's been cooking as of late. I've also been making some additional things. So you see a new couple of nice ones. So you see this is a rhino in the sunset. This is an African lady, a portrait, and this one is kind of an Eskimo. So you know, more little oil sketches. Hope I can show you some more of that stuff. Thanks for listening so far. Curious what you make of this one. I'll be back with more pretty soon. Do like, share, and subscribe. Cheerio, and bye-bye.